That's a healthy perspective, and it's actually should liberate us a little bit. You know what I mean? Because he's doing the heavy lifting. And we do it. I know we do. I do. Make excuses. It don't give him anything to work with. Well, I feel like I need to abbreviate. Not that this is probably going to be very long, but I don't know why it seems when there's less people, you feel like you should you should take less time. It's more fun to bore a lot of people, I guess. Well, before Wi-Fi, if you can remember that, and I guess depending on how old you are, there was a term used in home audio speak that now sounds a little odd and actually a little hard to say. Hi-fi. Doesn't even sound right, does it? Hi-fi. That is high fidelity, in case you're wondering. And contrary to popular belief, Wi-Fi is not short for wireless fidelity. But anyway, and there's a Jeff probably knows what that's related to. It's equal to this 1 EE whatever times 8.02. Anyway, whatever. So it now sounds kind of odd to say hi-fi, maybe high-fi, but not hi-fi. High-fidelity sound. High-fidelity sound, where synonyms are accuracy, exactness, and precision. The degree of exactness with which something is copied or reproduced, in that case, sound. High fidelity, hi-fi. Now, of course, fidelity is also associated with relationships, right? Those things synonymous with faithfulness, loyalty, and constancy, those kind of things. But what about faithfulness to a cause or a belief? Is that, you think about loyalty and allegiance and obedience. Is that considered fidelity? Faithfulness to a cause or belief. Well, we have a book in front of us that is pretty adamant about that. Whether or not faithfulness to a cause or a belief is fidelity. And you can still use terms like faithfulness and loyalty and constancy when it comes to this. This book is adamant about fidelity. In fact, where are the benefits and or penalties more sensational than they are in religion? And that's not one of my favorite words, but for my point here today, I guess I can't think of anything better. Where are benefits and or penalties of fidelity or infidelity any more sensational they are in religion? The Muslim faith, extreme. Islam extremists and that kind of thing, are ready to slaughter the infidels. So it has to do with fidelity. So again, I ask, where are the penalties more sensational or the benefits than they are in religion? Hopefully you were encouraged at some point prior to your baptism, if you've been baptized, to do something similar to or as much as counting the costs. Counting the cost. It's another term for understanding the landscape that you're entering into, the commitments that you're making, right? Accepting the gravity and the responsibility of what you're doing. I can say, fortunately, brethren, that you and I have, I think, looking at the people in this room, or the people that even would be in this room if everyone was here, that we have lived in an age where those costs have been relatively low, right? Before we were baptized, if someone were to caution us or to encourage us to think about what you're doing, count the cost, understand everything that it entails and the commitment that you're making, but yet we've lived in an age so far where those costs, even if we had counted them, have been relatively low. Now, we've had maybe some minor hardships. I know early on I lost a job, or I actually conceded the job, I guess. But they told me that I couldn't work the schedule that I needed to work because I had been working there previously, and now all of a sudden you're coming to me and saying you can't work after sunset on Friday. What kind of crazy religion is that? And that's exactly what I was asked. Never heard of that before. What kind of crazy religion is that? Well, crazy or not, that's the terms. I can't, in good faith or in good conscience, work after sunset on Friday until sunset on Saturday. Well, I guess we don't need you. So, maybe some minor hardships. Obviously, I got another job and things were fine. And you may correct me, but persecution is probably a stretch for most of us in this room, right? I mean, really persecuted because of what you believe. And that's, my opinion. The opinion, for me, is probably, or likely, the early New Covenant church, that obscurity has been our friend. We're not really high profile. We kind of blend into the landscape, and we're not really out there in everybody's face. And I say obscurity has been our friend in that we have lived in an age where that cost has been relatively low. Not that that will continue. So there has been some obscurity, and that's true even for the most part, I think, even for mainstream Christianity. Because society is growing less and less every day, it seems like. Less and less concerned about people of faith, right? They just don't see it as, and we grow increasingly archaic. If you are a Bible-believing, even Sabbath-keeping or commandment-keeping, and I'm not saying that there's not lots of people out there that still say that they adhere to that, but it seems as the further we go, the less and less concerned people are with people of faith, and certainly we seem increasingly archaic. Not so much for the early Protestants. That wasn't the case. I remember, and I believe it was sometime in the early fall of 1977, and I moved with my family into the city limits. They allowed me to move with them since I was only 11 years old or whatever. We moved into the city limits of Valdez. And I was in the 5th grade. And I remember that's the reason I know the time of year, because I had just started the 5th grade and I finished up the 5th grade at Valdez Elementary. And for that decade, from 1977 until 87, because I lived there a couple of different places we moved to, but mainly in one place, and lived there until actually a little bit after I was married in 1987. So it's one of those, if I could go back and know what I know now situations. Because if I could go back knowing what I know now, I know that I would have appreciated that history much more. And of course, the history being the Waldenses coming there from settling there in the late 1800s. And that history hasn't gone anywhere. It's not like I can't go back there or online and read about it. So it's not really gone anywhere. But for me, I think about, I was living for that decade in a community amongst people who could have personally told me some stuff. Now, a lot of those old people are gone, and it's not that it hasn't been passed down. There is the Waldensian Heritage Museum there in town, the Waldensian Presbyterian Church. There's the Trail of Faith. They have the outdoor drama from this day forward that chronicles or at least highlights their journey from France to Italy and then into different parts of the United States. There just happened to be one colony of Waldenses that turned out later to be the largest colony of Waldenses that wasn't located. It was the largest colony of Waldenses in the world that wasn't located in Italy. So that's just, part of Valdez's history. And I think if I could go back then, I didn't realize all that then. And I was a kid, but I was a coming-of-age kid. And I think I would have been, I knew the history was there. They had the festival in the fall in the street, and again, the outdoor drama. I guess the interest wasn't that high. But, If you could go back and talk to some of those people, and even then the stories, even those old heads of my youth would have only heard it, right? I don't know that there was anybody there that came over, in 1893, but there probably was, because the Waldenses settled in that area in 1893, I believe. So when the first 29 Waldenses came here, and I grew up with the impression that they moved here because of religious persecution. They left France because of religious persecution and went to the Cottian Alps of northern Italy. And once they gained their freedom by the Act of 1848, they started multiplying, and then there was not enough room for everybody, couldn't provide enough food for everybody, so they started migrating to other places, and that's how these people ended up in Burke County and started the little community there of Valdez. But if you think about the Waldenses, the Albigenses, and the crusade under the Albigenses, under the crusade of Pope Innocent, of all things, Pope Innocent III, it was like a 20-year crusade to wipe them out, pretty much. So, but they're both, the Waldenses and Albigenses, both are known to have paid high costs for fidelity to this word. Fidelity to this word that you have in your lap and on your devices in front of you. Now we have taught in this particular belief, we have taught that before the second coming there will be a period of time when possibly high costs are once again exacted for faithfulness to a cause, faithfulness to this, faithfulness to the Ten Commandments. We've already had a little conversation back there. Believing that this is the official word and the commandments are still in force and all that kind of stuff, we believe and have taught that before that second coming, whenever that's going to be, that costs will become heavier. If that is to be yet in my lifetime, hopefully I have not forgotten how to count. I was encouraged before I was baptized in 1988. And more so after, because it was just a little group of family when me and Linda were baptized back in 1988. And it was a while after that before we joined a group of believers, which was the Church of God International, or a Church of God International Fellowship group, and then learned even more about the costs of what we were doing and what we had done. But hopefully I haven't forgotten how to count, because, again, we have lived in an age where those costs haven't been really high. Minor, complications, but nothing as severe as what I consider persecution. So, the degree of exactness with which something is copied or reproduced. Now, I don't know what that degree of exactness will be if that persecution returns. One thing is for sure, even obscurity has not lessened the enemy's resolve. But there is much comfort when we hear words, when we read words in here like, ye are of God, little children, and have overcome them, because greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. And that's 1 John 4:4. And we've all taken encouragement from those words. We've heard them from here and read them and heard them from lots of different places. Greater, you have overcome. You are children. You are of God, little children, and have overcome them, because greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. Now that's not just for the future. That's for today, and it was certainly true in the past. Think about these people who were persecuted, and even to the point of, the Waldenses, before they went to France or left France, even after they went to Italy, they were persecuted for centuries by armies of France and Italy, by what was called the primary church. And we know who that is. Persecuted, lives taken, wanted to be eliminated, because they were what? They were faithful to this. Things are changing too much. We're taking all these pagan practices and putting Christian names on them, and so we can grow the church. We can pull Christians into the church, and it's just crazy. But lots of people have paid high cost for their fidelity. So it's not just for today. It's obviously true for history and for the future. I want to turn to the book of Revelation, chapter 12, for just a second. Pick up a couple verses first. And I heard a loud voice, it says in verse 10, Revelation 12. Verse 10, chapter 12, and I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, now has come salvation and strength and the kingdom of our God and the power of his Christ. For the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accused them before our God day and night. What did I say? His resolve has not been lessened, and he is certainly tireless. Accused them before God day and night, and they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. And they loved not their lives unto death. Brethren, have we gotten there? Have we arrived at that point? That we love not our lives to the point to where we could lay them down. Lay them down for the testimony of Jesus Christ, being our fidelity, costing us the ultimate price. I don't know, and we don't really want to find that out, do we? But if it's to happen in our lifetime, I hope we haven't forgotten how to count. And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, and they loved not their lives unto death. Now, take whatever future reference you need to from those couple of verses. Take whatever future reference you need to. But I tell you that equally beneficial is the acceptance of these words' historical significance. Because if we were to move back up to the top of that chapter and think of it, just try to get into this capsule with me for a minute and don't think anything future about this Revelation chapter 12. Let's just look at it from what's already been, an historical reference. And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. Now we can think about this as the church, the early New Covenant church. A woman clothed with the sun of righteousness, right? And the moon under her feet. In other words, earth beneath, your head is somewhere else. Don't put all your trust in this life, right? I mean, we can, there's any number of things that we can do with that first verse there. And I don't mean to profane it or take it out of context, but if you look at it strictly from an historical standpoint, what's already happened, what we can reference it to. There appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. And we can think about the 12 disciples and, all these different things. And she, being with child, cried, travailing in birth and pain to be delivered. And there appeared another wonder in heaven. And behold, the tireless, resolved adversary. In a historical setting. Christ is coming, right? And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great dragon, a great red dragon, great in its fierceness and its wrath, having 7 heads, 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon its head. Now, is it ironic that Rome was on the 7 hills, that they were divided into 10 provinces, had 7 kings? There it is, 10, 7, 10, or 7, 10, 7, sorry. But again, there's all kinds of references to these scriptures. And his tail drew a third part of the stars of heaven. Not only the persecution of leaders in the church, but we know that there was a third of the angels that went with him during his rebellion. And his tail drew a third part of the stars of heaven and did cast them to the earth, and the dragon stood before the woman. She's in travail, ready to give birth. And where's he at? He's right there, isn't he? Ready to persecute, ready to destroy if he can. Which was before the woman which was ready to be delivered to devour her child as soon as it was born. Lots of babies were killed, weren't they, to try to accomplish that. And she brought forth a man-child who was to rule all the nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up unto God and to his throne. That's a lot of history in 5 verses. But what did the woman do? What did the church do? If this is, consider this the church, and the woman fled into the wilderness. Remember, obscurity, where she hath a place prepared of God, that they should feed her for 1,260 days. What did Christ do after his baptism? He went into the wilderness, didn't he? He was tempted. And there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon. And the dragon fought, and his angels were on the other side. But they prevailed not. They were defeated, weren't they? Through Christ, his ministry, his sacrifice, and they prevailed not, neither was their place found any more in heaven. And the great dragon was cast out, again defeated, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceives the whole world. He was cast out into the earth. Who is greater? He that is in you is greater than he that is in the world. He deceived the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. And I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, now is come salvation and strength and the kingdom of our God. This could be future, but it's already been history, is it not? Now is come salvation. Now is come Jesus Christ, our salvation and our strength and the kingdom of our God and the power of his Christ. For the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accused them before God night and day. And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb. And we can do it today. This is the only way we can do it, by the way. And by the word of their testimony. And they loved not their lives unto death, which we've already read. Therefore rejoice. Rejoice, heavens, and you that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea. We're just pilgrims here, right? For the devil has come down unto you having great wrath, because he knows that he has but a short time. And when the dragon saw that he was cast into the earth, he persecuted the woman. He persecuted the woman. Has the church ever been persecuted, brethren? And the woman was brought forth, and the woman which brought forth the man-child. And to the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place, where she was nourished for a time and times and half a time from the face of the serpent. And the serpent cast out of his mouth water as a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away of the flood. Flood of what? Flood of all kinds of things. You know, there is lots of people, lots of Bible professionals who will expound that there is as much concern about heresy in the church as there is from persecution outside the church. This flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away of the flood. That's our job, isn't it? Not to be carried away by every whim of doctrine and all that stuff that we read about in this word. And the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened her mouth and swallowed up the flood, which the dragon cast out of his mouth. And the dragon was wroth with the woman, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which, now would those early Protestants who went through all those persecutions and crusades that meant to eliminate them, could they take any serious words from these scriptures? It was wroth with the woman and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. Wow. You know, I had a license plate. I actually had 2 personalized North Carolina license plates at one time, Remnant 1 and Remnant 2. And I did that in an effort to create conversation. And I thought, if people ask me the question, what does your license plate mean? Because you're going up and down the freeway and people are looking at your tag that says Remnant 1 and Remnant 2. What does that mean? Not that people are going to pull you over and ask, but hopefully in a parking lot. And it worked. I had to answer that question a few times. What does it mean? But the cost of renewing a personalized license plate, Remnant 2, went away pretty quick. But I still kept it on the primary family vehicle for a few years. But eventually let it go. I still have that license plate somewhere. But it was based on this scripture in Revelation 12:17. Because we consider ourselves some of those, don't we? Which keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. You think Satan's given up that battle against those people? Well, I'm not worried about those anymore. You know, right now he probably doesn't have to a lot because, again, we're in obscurity, but that's somewhat. Things are changing and will change, I'm sure. He went to make war with the remnant of her seed. And then when people say, what does that mean? Well, it's based on Revelation 12:17. Those that keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. And a lot of people will tell you that they do. Maybe not all of them do. But these are just thoughts for the day, brethren. Fidelity. Fidelity. We sit here today as people that would tell you that we are faithful to a cause. But I know for me and for you, fidelity, when it comes to fidelity, ours always needs to be progressing. It always needs to be improving. It always needs to be refined. Because we can read those 10 Commandments, and we can say that we believe in them and that we keep them, but we always have to be checking ourselves and seeing how well we're doing. Always needs to be in progress. Our adversary is loyal to his cause, and he is tireless. He hasn't given up the battle. Even if we haven't, just because we've lived in an age where the costs have been relatively low, thank God, but I don't know that that will continue throughout my lifetime. It may. It may. But I know that he is loyal to his cause and he is tireless. Our costs have been low, but we have not been under much of a microscope either. And maybe that changes in our lifetime. But even if it doesn't, the preparation of that ground for the younger people or people that come after us, I mean, we do have a responsibility in our fidelity to prepare that ground because we know for sure that there is a second coming. So the thought for the day, brethren, is this book in front of you, whether it's on a device or whether it's actual ink and paper. This book is hi-fi. High on fidelity. I would say high infidelity, but that's 1980s REO Speedwagon. And I can hear the song. I want to hear the song. I want to check myself, and I want to make sure that my fidelity and faithfulness to a cause and faithfulness to the word, even love not their lives unto death. I haven't been challenged to that. Not yet. Does that change before I die? Who knows? If it does, I hope I remember how to count. And I hope I can hear playing in that high fidelity an old standby. Some glad morning when this life is o'er, brethren, hopefully we fly away.